Hi everyone, welcome to UTV Guna. I've got Stephen with me for an end of season review. Hey, how are you?
I'm alright, thank you, Amit. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, been a good season. We got a lot of criticism towards the end. We know what went on in the title race, but I remember talking to you at the start of the season and we all knew that our target was top 4 and we would be very happy if we could achieve that this season, which we've done it comfortably. I know we were in the title race and unfortunately at the end, as I said, it didn't work out for us, but it was up against a great team like Man City. We've just seen them do the treble now as well. So I just wanted to start with getting your overall thoughts on the season and what rating would you give the team?
Well, I thought overall the season was excellent. As you say, our hopes and dreams were basically top 4 Champions League. To finish second in comparison to that, if somebody had offered it at the start of the season, we would have bitten our hand off and said, yeah, we'll take it. The fact that we ran City so close for so long is a credit to Arteta and to the squad. And we lost out in the end. I'm fed up with hearing people say, oh, Arsenal bottled it. They didn't bottle it. They didn't have the strength in depth that Manchester City have got. So with Saka getting tired and a bit off form towards the end, and losing Saliba, of course, was crucial. And Tomiyasu as well was a big loss. And we didn't have the strength in depth in those positions to compensate for that. And that's where we lost it. The other myth I would like to put to bed is, well, you had an 11-point lead and you threw it away. Yeah, we had an 11-point lead because Manchester City had 3 games in hand over us. We actually had a 2-point lead. So we didn't throw away a massive lead at the end of the day. They played their games and won them and closed the gap. Yeah, those 6 points we dropped against Liverpool, West Ham and Southampton, 3 games that we drew that we should have won, made the difference. And that's a shame, but I don't think they bottled it, and we certainly came back well towards the end of the season. Great victory at Newcastle, that was a highlight for me. Fantastic performance and a very deserved and comfortable victory against what is a very good side. So that was excellent. And the last day of the season at home to Wolves, also a brilliant performance against a team that were basically mentally on the beach, but even so, we played well, we produced some great football throughout the season. And all in all, it's been a success because we've achieved more than most, if not all, Arsenal fans expected. And the great thing is, we're not Leicester City. It's not a one-off thing. If we didn't win it this year, that's it. This is a young squad. The nucleus that he's keeping is fantastic. 1 or 2 top-class additions. Please come, Declan. 1 or 2 top-class additions that will strengthen the squad rather than the first 11 is what we need, and I'm convinced that under those circumstances over the next 2 or 3 seasons we will be challenging, and I expect Arsenal to win the league within the next 2, 3, 4 seasons.
Okay, what rating would you give us out of 10 men for this season?
I would give them 9 out of 10. I would give Arteta 8 out of 10, and the reason is because I don't think he made enough use of Reece Nelson and Kieran Tierney at the end of the season, or Smith Rowe either. He kept bringing Vieira on when he needed to make a midfield substitution, and he's too lightweight. I'm not sure that he'll make it, but he certainly wasn't ready for it this season. And it's interesting that Smith Rowe was on the bench game after game for the last few weeks, and he barely got on, except when we beat Bournemouth, he set up the winning goal from the corner that he chested down when it was cleared, and Reece Nelson smashed it in. So he made a contribution. So I think that Arteta didn't manage the squad as well as perhaps he might have done, but he still has done very well.
Yeah, for him as well, it's early days in his managerial career.
Absolutely.
That was his first title race as a manager, so going to learn a lot from that experience. As a team, we're going to learn a lot from that. And as you said, all this talk about us bottling it is ridiculous. Example of a team bottling it is a team like Man United when they were, I think it was 10 points ahead of Man City, and they had very experienced players have won league titles before and then they ended up losing out to Man City. That's an example of Burnley. For us, our players aren't experienced.
No.
Haven't been in title races. And then the other thing that a lot of people have been saying is that this was our best chance. As you
I don't agree with that.
saying that other teams are going to improve.
This was an unexpected chance.
Exactly.
I would say, not the best chance. But you only have to look at all the results during the season for the clubs. And teams like Manchester City lost to Brentford, lost to bloody Tottenham, right? I mean, the great thing about the Premier League is you don't know from one week to the next. The bottom team can beat the top team. And that's what makes it so much harder than Spain or Germany or France. Because there, you know, it's a handful of teams. And they could put their kids out against most of the other teams in the league and walk it. So you can't do that here. I mean, the biggest disappointment for me actually was that 3-0 home defeat by Brighton. That was pathetic and really poor performance, and they just, I don't know, mentally they just didn't seem to be there.
Yeah, so I remember speaking to you after that one. It was a difficult one for us to take, but I think mentally at that point players were really drained.
Yes.
For us, we've been fighting so hard, and we look over at Man City, they just keep winning and winning. It can be mentally draining at that point as well. They just beaten Everton, and it was like that was kind of the last chance.
The big
really
thing with
seeing
City is, of course, you know, they could rest players like Kevin De Bruyne and bring in Riyad Mahrez. Well, you know, Mahrez isn't quite as good as De Bruyne, but it doesn't reduce.
De Bruyne came off injured, and they brought in Foden.
Foden, exactly. So that's where they scored over us. We didn't have the strength in depth. I mean, the injury to Gabriel Jesus, Eddie did okay when he came in to start with, but even then, after a few games, he wasn't quite as effective as he had been. He's not got the quality. You know, we need to be able to bring in somebody who is going to not weaken the strength of the team, and even if it means changing the way we play a bit, and we've shown that we can adapt to doing that. So, but overall, it was an excellent season, better than most of us expected. Disappointing at the end, yes, but this is the start, not the end.
Okay then, so many great performances for us this season. Who would you give your player of the season to?
Well, it's a tough one, that, because there were a lot of outstanding performances. The most outstanding player was, of course, Martin Odegaard, but he did contribute to us conceding 2 or 3 vital goals when he gave the ball away on the halfway line, and the opposing team, Manchester United, was one, and I think Southampton was one, where he flicked the ball off and it went to an opponent and they broke away and scored. But even allowing for that, I would say Odegaard was our player of the season, but Martinelli runs him close for me. I thought he had a fantastic season. Got tired a bit towards the end, and Saka, of course, is also, you know, certainly between him and Odegaard, they're the 2 best players in the team currently, and he had a very good season, but he got tired at the end. And I think we didn't give him enough rest when we had a chance, and give Reece Nelson a bit more of a run, because he did well whenever he came on. I was here for the Forest game when Saka went off after about 25 minutes, and Nelson came on, scored 2 goals, and we won 5-0. And every time he came on as a sub, you know, he was effective. And I think Arteta should have had more faith in him and rested Bukayo Saka for 2 or 3 of the games, even against teams like West Ham, who in the league were not doing well. Give him a rest and let Reece have a go. As far as my favourite game of the season is concerned, any victory over Tottenham is always the best, and I would say probably the away win at White Hart Lane is my favourite result. And it was an excellent performance and a well-deserved win, and we really showed them how to play the game. Maybe one day they'll learn. As far as goal of the season is concerned, it's got to be Nelson against Bournemouth in the 97th minute. Not only because it won us the game, but it was tremendous skill, and it was his wrong foot, because he's right-footed mainly, although he can use both feet, and he hit it with his left. And as soon as he hit it, you just knew. And the reaction to that was absolutely fantastic, and he gets my goal of the season without any doubt.
Okay, so just wanted to ask you your overall thoughts on the season in general now. So we've seen that in the Premier League, Newcastle had a really good season, managed to get Champions League football. We saw teams like Aston Villa and Brighton do really well. The teams that went down were Southampton, Leicester and Leeds. And we saw Chelsea and Tottenham struggle this season. Always good to see that. But yeah, what were your overall thoughts on the season?
Well, first of all, I was delighted to see Leeds go down, because after Tottenham, they're the team I hate most. People of a certain age like myself can think back to the days in the 60s and 70s with Billy Bremner and Norman Hunter and co. And what a good side they were, but they were so dirty and they didn't need to be. And I remember when their goalkeeper Gary Sprake knocked Bobby Gould out in a game down at Highbury when they challenged for the ball, and when they both landed on their feet, Sprake punched him, knocked him spark out. And that was just typical of them. So I'm pleased to see the back of them, and hope it's a long time before they get their way back into the Premier League. So yeah, pleased to see Leeds go down. I'm not surprised at the success Newcastle had. They were building to it even the season before. He's a terrific manager, Eddie Howe. I think he should be the next England manager, personally, after Southgate. He has improved the players he's got. It isn't just a case of going out and spending money. They deserve to finish in the top four and qualify for Europe, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with next season as well. And I was pleased for Joe Willock, former Arsenal player. He had a good end to the season too. Aston Villa have been threatening for a while to be a decent team, but they struggled under Gerrard. Unai Emery, who we all know and sort of love, has done an excellent job in the short time he's been there. I think the biggest difference between him being manager there and manager here is he's learned English, and it gives him more confidence to deal with the press and the media, and also with his players. And they've looked very good at Aston Villa this season. Watkins has had a good season. I know we've been linked with him, but I really don't want him at Arsenal. I don't think he's good enough for us. But they had a good season. Brighton were the surprise team for me. I mean, they've been playing some good football over the last couple of seasons, but they surprised a lot of people. And I think, thankfully, they didn't have a really good central striker, although the young guy, Ferguson, I think his name is, who was just coming in, he's only 18, he looks promising. I don't know if they're about to hang on to him for long, but he looked promising, and they had a good season. It's always lovely to see Spurs struggle. They are the laughing stock of Europe, and I joked with a friend of mine who's a Spurs fan and said they're going to be changing their nickname to the Brexiteers because they're out of Europe and they're staying out. So always delightful to see them, and if Kane does go, they're really going to struggle. As for Chelsea are living proof that you can't just spend the money, you've got to spend it wisely, however much. Yeah, they've bought the title and the Champions League in the past because they've had good managers and they've had people who can bring the best out of the players that they've got. But it's been an absolute disaster. Potter was well and above his head. He was an idiot to leave Brighton to take that job, in my view. They've got a strong squad, Chelsea, there's no question about it, and no doubt they'll be spending another few $100 million in the summer to buy some more players. But they've got to get a manager who's going to get the best out of them, and of course now they have. I was not happy to see Pochettino getting the job there because I really rate him. I think he's a top quality coach, and putting all bias aside, he did a terrific job at Tottenham and he had them punching well above their weight and ability. God alone knows what he's going to do with a full pre-season, at Stamford Bridge to get that lot into order, because they've definitely got talent. Mudryk, yes, Arsenal fans were pleased to see that he was an absolute flop there, but that's because he was coming into a new team and into a new league, and he had to find his feet, and he didn't get any help from his colleagues or from his manager. I think that will change, and he is going to be a player to watch out for next season, and a lot of Arsenal fans are going to be sitting there thinking, if only. But he is an example of the talent they've got. Talking of Chelsea, I've seen that Arsenal have been linked with Kai Havertz. I hope we don't buy him. He's been in the Premier League long enough now to show that he isn't up to it. Fulham also had a good season, and applause to West Ham. I'm glad they won the Tiddlywinks Cup or whatever it is. I watched the final and I was hoping they would win it, and I was delighted for them. I'm pleased for Moyes. Nice goodbye gift from Declan Rice, who hopefully will be coming up here to join us very soon, as soon as the England games are over.
Yeah, so let's talk about the transfers. First, let's talk about the contract renewals. So we've had the news in since I last spoke to you that Ramsdale and Saka have both renewed. Martinelli had renewed earlier in the season. We're hearing Saliba's going to renew from some strong sources. It's not been announced by the club yet, but it seems like he's going to renew. So it was really important for us to keep our young core of players that we have. Absolutely. Really great players they are, and they're just going to get better and better. So great news for us.
Yes, absolutely. It was more important in a way for us to get those contracts renewed, and Reece Nelson as well, who I understand is going to stay and have a new contract as well, and he'll have a lot of game time, I should think, next season, Reece. So those contract renewals were absolutely vital, because the whole point is we've got to build on what we've got, and it would have been no good if we'd have lost some of these players, and especially if we'd have lost some of them for nothing. So it's vital that we got those done, and congratulations to Edu for getting that arranged. And hopefully, as you say, Saliba will also renew. I've also seen and heard from various sources that is virtually agreed. It's just a question of them putting pen to paper and announcing it. So that would be great. He is particularly an important part of the squad, because that is one of the areas where we suffered from lack of decent cover. All due respect to Rob Holding, but he was a real weak link when he came in after Saliba got injured.
Yeah, amazing that he's going to stay. He's been a great player. But I saw a stat saying that last season with Saliba in the team, we won like 70+% of our games, and without him it was like down to the 40% mark. So that's the big difference he makes.
Doesn't surprise me.
He makes a difference just in not just defensively, but going forward, the way he can start our attacks.
It relieves the burden on Gabriel, because Kivior did okay when he did come in, but they left him a bit late and played Holding first. Kivior wasn't bad, and he'll come on, but he's a left footer, and he's really there as cover for Gabriel, not to play alongside him. But he looks like he could develop into a top-class central defender, so we've got to keep him as well.
Okay, so now looking at some of the players that might be leaving, so we saw strong rumours going into that last game of the season that Granit Xhaka is leaving, and that was his last game. If it was his last game, what a great performance and farewell that was. But nothing's confirmed yet, but it does seem like he is going to be going. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, considering the situation a few years ago with him, he and Mikel Arteta, who's played no small part in it, has totally revamped himself and reinvented himself, and he had no question about it, he had a great season last season. But having said that, I won't be sorry to see him go. Let him go out on a high, loved by the fans. It's a great recovery for him from where he was. And thank you very much, Granit, and I wish you success in the future elsewhere, but I will not be sorry if it is elsewhere.
Okay, so going to go on now to one of your favourite players now, Balogun. He's had a great time out on loan. We're not sure what's going to happen with him. Are we going to keep him? Are we going to sell him? I know you're a big fan of his. What's your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, I think we are going to sell him, and I will be devastated if we do. As far as I'm concerned, he's the best young player that's come through the Hale End Academy since Smith Rowe and Saka. I think he is going to develop into a world-class striker. He scored 21 goals last season in the French League. People are saying, yeah, well, it's only the French League. But he still had to do it, and he did it. He gives us a different dimension from Gabriel Jesus leading the attack, I think, and certainly increases our aerial power by a great percentage when he's there, because he's very good in the air. He can shoot with either foot. You know that I'm a massive fan. I've watched his development through the under-18s and through the under-21s, and I think he is ready for first-team football in the Premier League for Arsenal, and I think he is above and ahead of Eddie Nketiah, and it should be him and Jesus alternating as and when rests are needed to be taken or players are injured. I am a massive fan. I think he will break every goal scoring record going, given half a chance, and it'll be a massive loss if he does go. I've heard that both Inter Milan and AC Milan are interested in him, and they're prepared to pay around about £40 million. Well, if we're going to sell him for £40 million, we're going to have to get another striker in. We're going to have to pay 60 plus to get somebody in who may or may not be slightly better than him, probably isn't, and certainly hasn't got the longevity in front of them, injury free, if he gets that, for him to have. And I was very upset that he has sent his loyalties over to the United States. I think England have missed a trick there, because after Harry Kane, there's nobody that's really a standout. Ivan Toney's the next one in line as his successor, and then you come down to the likes of Callum Wilson and one or two others. Balogun's already better than them. I would put him up alongside Toney now, as at least level with him, and most clubs would be happy, if circumstances for Toney were different, to see their club buy him as the centre forward for next season, the betting scandal aside. I think Balogun is already just as good, and also as deadly from the penalty spot, because he scored half a dozen penalties last season amongst his 21 goals. So I would be really sorry to see him go, but I would understand him wanting to leave if he doesn't feel he's going to get a reasonable amount of game time here, and certainly be ahead of Eddie.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. It's a massive summer coming up for us now, so we want to get to that next level now of actually winning the Premier League, hopefully the Champions League in the next couple of years. Great progress this last season. We closed the gap on Man City. It was 24 points the year before, down to 5 points last season. So heading into next season now, we want to take that next step to get ahead of them, and also to challenge in the Champions League. Hopefully in the next couple of years, look to we winning both of their competitions. So we want to now be trying to build on what we have. Huge transfer window. What's your thoughts on, first of all, how many players do you think we need to get in?
Well, let's go through the team. We're happy with Ramsdale in goal. We need cover for him. I'm not convinced with Matt Turner, number one. He's a good shot stopper, but I don't think he dominates his penalty box enough. And what's more, he's America's number one goalkeeper. The World Cup's going to be in the States in a couple of years' time. He's going to want to have regular game time. He needs to go to a club where he's going to be first choice, not second. And we need to be looking at getting cover in for Ramsdale. Defensively, that was our big problem last season. We didn't have a problem scoring goals. We had a problem conceding goals that we shouldn't have too often. And that was because Ben White is a centre half, and although he played okay and had some really good games at right back, I still think he's actually a centre half. But we were struggling at full back on that side with Tomiyasu injured. as well, and with Ben White running out of steam and nobody to come in and play there, playing Partey there against Wolves didn't really impress me. We've been linked in the last couple of days with Castagna from Leicester City, Belgian international, who's Premier League proven, and I wouldn't be unhappy to see Arsenal sign him. I know they've been linked with this 18-year-old kid in Spain or Italy, I can't remember his name, and he may well be one for the future. But Castagna could slot straight in at right back to this squad, even if he's only as cover for Ben White. At least it would give him a chance to have a rest. So I would be interested and happy to see that. We need cover in the centre of the defence in case Saliba's not available or needs a rest. So we need either to be able to switch Ben White over there or get somebody else in of a similar calibre to provide the cover. Left back is an interesting situation because I'm a big fan of Kieran Tierney, but he doesn't play this inverted role that Zinchenko does, and although I think that's good because it gives us an option and we can mix things up against teams by bringing him on and changing the direction and style of the attack, but if he's not going to play regularly, he's going to want to leave, and I don't blame him. Newcastle, we know, have been hovering, and I don't blame him if he goes there, but I would hope that he would stay. As far as the midfield is concerned, well, Declan Rice obviously is the big transfer in the news at the moment, not just for Arsenal but generally. Yeah, he would be a step up. It'd be interesting to see whether he would play in that central role instead of Partey, who tailed off at the end of last season, and he's got these allegations hanging over him, and I wonder whether that will continue to affect his form. Plus he is injury prone. Jorginho did a terrific job when he came in, but he's not a regular first team starter, so Declan Rice could play there, and then you would have Odegaard in front of him on the right, and I would have Smith Rowe in the Granit Xhaka role on the left. I think that would be a really good midfield three. But Rice can play in that Xhaka role if he wants to stick with Partey or Jorginho in the defensive role. So we've got plenty of options there. I don't think we need to go looking for another midfield player. You've got Lokonga, we need to get rid of him because he's couldn't even get in the first team at Crystal Palace, so he's obviously up to it. Vieira, I think he's too lightweight, so perhaps get rid of him. We've got a couple of youngsters coming through. Miguel Aziz is one that's impressed me in the past, and he's been out on loan last season and did quite well. So we've got Marquinhos, don't forget, who can play wide on the right. Was in the Brazil team for the Under-20 World Cup that just happened. So he's possibly somebody, unless they're going to send him out on loan again. And up front, well, we need someone to either play with or play instead of Gabriel Jesus in the centre. Bukayo Saka, you've got Reece Nelson as cover for him, and you've got Trossard as cover for Martinelli on the left. Smith Rowe can play in that role. Jesus can play wide if necessary. He's got options to manoeuvre people around so that he can rest one or two and not totally weaken the team, and he needs to make more use of the adaptability of those players. But we need at least one defender who can play right back and or central defence. We need Declan Rice, and we need another striker, which in my view would be Balogun. But if he goes, we need to get someone, because Eddie's fine against West Ham and Fulham, but not against Manchester. I know he scored against Man United last season, but you know he's not going to be good enough in the Champions League for me. So I think that's really where we need to strike. That we don't need masses of players. We just need 3 or 4 top quality players in those positions.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be a massive transfer window. Really looking forward to it. They announced the fixtures today as well, so get excited before you know it. It's going to be
easy
August.
Start, home to Forest.
Yeah, it's good that we got a home game to start the season and a home game to finish the season. We got Everton at home again on the last day of the season, so Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to catching up with you later in the summer to preview next season and discuss how the transfer window's going. Big season coming up, Champions League football. It's been a long wait for us, so that's really exciting times for us to have Champions League football back here, them European nights. It's going to be great.
Looking forward to it. As far as the Champions League is concerned for this coming season, we've got to get through the group stage. That would be a failure if we don't do that. And then depending on who we end up having to play in the knockout stages, I would like to think at least the last 16, if not the last 8. And I would be happy with that because I think it would be good progress and something to build on for the following season when we could hopefully really challenge for it. As far as the Premier League is concerned this season, we have got to be really in that title race right up until the last day and in with a chance of winning it on the last day. I would be disappointed if we're not.
Yeah, big season coming up. Let's hope we can take that next step now and next season go on and win the Premier League. We've been on that upward trajectory after finishing 8th 2 seasons in a row, up to 5th, now up to 2nd. The next step is to get 1st. Let's hope we can do it next season. Look forward to catching up with you soon. Thank you so much.
One other thing I'd like to mention, a big cheer for the launch of Jewish Gooners. One in the eye for the Spurs fans and all this. They're the Jewish club. I'm Jewish myself, so I'm delighted to see the club welcomed the birth of the Jewish Gooners, and it goes to prove that that community, our community, my community, we're just as strong Arsenal supporters as they are for other clubs.
Yeah, diversity. We're a worldwide club, massive following. Well, I meet people all the time when I'm doing work for the channel. They come from all over the world. We have such a strong support all around. I do a lot of things on Zoom online as well, people around the world. The following we have is huge.
Yeah, it is. And a shout out for the ladies. Also, they had a terrific season. They got Champions League football at the death as well, which was great. Very unlucky to get knocked out in the semi-final. I was here for that amongst the 60,000 record crowd. I wish a good speedy recovery to Beth Mead and Viv Miedemar in particular, and hopefully they will also strengthen the squad. They suffered the same as the men's team in as much as they had a few injuries to a few key players. Leah Williamson was another one, and Caitlin Ford, and they didn't have the strength in depth either, and it cost them at the end. So hopefully we'll be celebrating both the men and the women next season with a really successful time.
So thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Okay, all the best.
Thanks for watching everyone. Please remember to subscribe, like and share.